what is the one thing that you could point to that people just can't argue with that could start to soften this idea that everything the government's saying is true, everything that pharma is doing is for our best
Nobody's
interests,
ever asked me that question. So I have to kind of process it. And I'm sure whatever I say now, tomorrow morning when I get in the shower, I'm going to say, oh, dummy, why didn't you remember that thing?
Sure.
Let me think. What could really turn the tide? I think that the upcoming drop from Twitter that has been delayed, people call it the Fauci files or whatever, that's supposed to, we're now recording in February of 2023, just to put a timestamp, in what is it, the second week now in February. And many of us had anticipated that this drop might have occurred in January or even in late December, and still we're sitting here waiting. And Musk has stated that the problem is that whoever he is authorized to process this information hasn't been able to schedule their trip out to the West Coast. And he hasn't disclosed, is this Alex Berenson, who is this mystery person that has such an important schedule that they can't break off to go do this information drop that potentially is going to blow the world open. That could do it.
And in that, what you're surmising, it might prove, even beyond what's already been shown, collusion between the government and Twitter to silence dissident voices,
and
or it goes beyond that.
Topics that they're sensitive to. So what are the topics that, and this is just a hypothesis. I mean, there's a number of things that could drop. I'm about to travel to London to support a bunch of members of parliament that are now raising the question more actively about what's happened. It could pop in Great Britain. Before it pops from Silicon Valley. But the truth is coming. It's relentless.
Yeah. I mean, you look at something like, let's say we're showing, and this is, ultimately what we found. I think Brett Weinstein's focused on this when he's tried to isolate what he wanted to really hammer home is the suppression of vitamin D therapy and supplementation, right? He's like,
That's an old story.
It's an old story, but so for him, his idea was like, look, if you just get this, it's absolutely absurd. There's no way that it couldn't help, and there's no way that it could hurt. So if you're suppressing it, you have to have an alternate motive.
But they've kept up a whole line that overdosing of vitamin D is toxic. They've actively promoted that. It is patently absurd. You cannot, after all we've seen over the last 3 years, you cannot underestimate the absolute lack of any morality on the part of these people that are promoting these false narratives. There are no boundaries. Right. There are no guardrails. They will do or say anything in order to achieve their objective. This is one of the things that for me is most shocking, and it's got a direct socket into the wars that we've all, been experiencing without even knowing it, this fifth generation warfare. But we are in, it's like, everything that all the conspiracy theorists ever said about information wars is all being validated in real time. We've all experienced it, and it absolutely has been deployed by the militaries of the Five Eyes Alliance in their respective nations against their own populace. And they will, like vitamin D is a great example. Ivermectin is another example, where they will do anything. And then when legally confronted, they come up with these weasel excuses, like the FDA did when finally they were legally confronted about the ivermectin story and that infamous tweet using the term y'all, which was clearly pejorative and targeted at Southerners, accusing them all of eating horse paste. And did you know that ivermectin is for horses? Which, of course, is intrinsically absurd.
Right.
But there's no self-awareness. There's no apology. There is no there are no boundaries. There are absolutely no guardrails. They will do or say anything in order to reinforce the narrative that they're told to reinforce.
Right. And what else do you think can actually, like, because as you said, they're squirmy, there's no boundaries, they're willing to say, do anything, they'll be a chameleon, they'll fit in some way, they'll find a way to, if not argue the point, they'll argue against ad hominem, against the person who's making the point, and then misdirect.
They have a myriad of strategies.
A bunch of strategies. But if there is like other things where you feel like, all right, I see you know, kind of ephemeral chameleon, mercurial ghost that's trying to elude me, but I'm going to pin you down like Ghostbusters right here in this thing. Let me pin you on this thing.
Okay, you just used a metaphor that is absolutely appropriate. You may or may not know the 4th Army PSYOPs Division out of Fort Bragg is a derivative of the Ghost Army. The Ghost in the Machine is absolutely a dominant narrative and metaphor in this 5th generation warfare PSYOP space. Mm-hmm. That's key. To do it effectively, and it has been done very effectively on all of us for the last 3 years. You never know who the opponent is. You never know who the antagonist is. If you become aware of who that antagonist is, they've failed.
Right.
That's the world we're in, and it is so challenging to operate in that environment because it destroys the very fabric of society because you never know who you can trust. Mm-hmm. It's like everybody surrounding you. There's no boundaries between military and civilian now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely none. And what along these lines, I'm sure you're familiar with who Marshall McLuhan is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Marshall McLuhan predicted this. He said in the next world war was going to be an information war and there would be no boundaries between military and civilians. Here we are.
Yeah.
It is, when you dive into that world and really try to process it, Michael Flynn has a new book. There's a great one on 5th generation warfare. People get confused. They think it's talking about cell towers. No, this is not that 5G, right? Right. That you can get as an ebook. If you dive into the logic of this space, it is incredibly mind-bending and twisted. It's very, very hard to even process a world in which everything is potentially a weapon.
Yeah. And so in older forms, more primitive forms of warfare, I mean, empire's been at its business since the beginning of recorded time, right? The desire for power, the desire for hierarchy, the desire to make some people extremely powerful, other people basically a servant class to generate wealth for those, people who are more powerful. This is by nature, the nature of empire. Also the hubris and condescension to think that they know best for everybody else. All of these factors and qualities of empire without actually having to name the people who are participating, because actually, honestly, there's a little bit of empire in all of us, right? It's like a virus that's infected every individual to a certain degree. It's just some people are really actively hosts for this kind of parasitic mentality.
Interesting way to think about it, as hosts in a parasite.